All good? Yep.
I just want to make sure we're up before I have to speak.
Good morning and welcome to the Canmore Local Assessment Review Board hearing. I would like to remind everyone that the ARB hearings are open to the public and that this hearing will be recorded and streamed live. The video recording will be the record of hearing. We are here today to review the complaint and subsequent evidence as filed for tax roll number 13426, municipal address of 330 Canyon Close. I will start by introducing the panel and then ask the parties to introduce themselves. After that, I will explain our standard hearing procedure and ask for comments in that regard. My name is Anita Furlan, and I'm the presiding officer appointed to this panel. The other panel members with me today are...
Hi, good morning. My name's Jen Marin, panel member and also Town of Canmore Council representative.
Good morning. My name is Christoph Breyer.
Does anyone have any objection to the panel as constituted? Okay. I am now going to have the parties introduce themselves, starting with the complainant. Would you please state for the record your name, organization, and your role in the hearing? Please indicate whether you are the owner of the property under the complaint. And if I can ask you to just come up to the mic and press the main button until it turns red.
My name is Luke Arbacey, and this is my wife, Irene Arbacey, and we are the owners of 330 Canyon Close as a residential property.
Great, thank you. Now to the respondent.
Good morning, I'm Grayson Bannerman. I am with Legacy Municipal Services. We represent the assessments in the town of Canmore. Behind me is Deanne Bannerman. She will be answering, or if required, providing any additional context or answers that I might not be able to provide. Thank you.
Great, thank you. The LORP standard practice is to have the complainant present all their evidence first, followed by questions from the respondent and then the panel. Next, the respondent presents their evidence, followed once again by questions from the complainant and then the panel. The complainant will have the opportunity for rebuttal, and finally, both parties will have an opportunity to present their final argument and summarize their evidence for the panel, with the complainant presenting first. If anyone needs a break or if a problem comes up, please let the panel know as soon as possible, and we can address those things as we go. I will also take this time to remind everyone to please turn off any mobile devices. Are there any questions regarding the procedure today, or is everyone satisfied with the process as is laid out? Okay. I see both parties have exchanged disclosure evidence before the hearing. To save time, I propose that we mark all documents for the record now. That won't stop anyone raising questions about admissibility later. If any such questions arise, we can still deal with them and strike material from the record later if necessary. Is everyone comfortable with this procedure? Madam Clerk.
Thank you. For tax roll 13426, we've received complaint package marked C1 of the complaint form of 2 pages. For complainant package marked C2, we have received complainant disclosure of 2,305 pages. For complainant package marked C3, we have received the complainant rebuttal of 2 pages, and for respondent package marked R1, we have received respondent disclosure of 61 pages.
Thank you. Are there any preliminary issues for the panel to address? Okay. All right. Mr. Arbacey, we are ready to hear your evidence if you're set to go ahead.
Morning, Chair and members of the board. Thank you for being here and thank you for the work you do. We know these hearings take preparation, patience, and focus, and we truly appreciate the opportunity to present our perspective. My wife and I are 15-year Canmore residents. I recently retired from teaching math and physics here in this town, and although I've spent my life working with numbers, I still find this whole process very challenging. We are grateful for the chance to walk through perhaps more questions than we have answers in terms of evidence. We are essentially here under matter number 3, the assessment amount, and our goal is simply to ensure the assessment better represents our particular data point, which is our home. Some background: while we recently purchased the home in end of November 2025, we weren't able to move in because of undisclosed gas leak. Longer story, but we'll leave it there. We're still relatively new to the home. This is not our first experience with assessment that came in above purchase price. In 2012, we had similar, except a bigger difference in Coyote Way. What we hope to show today is 3 main concerns that we have. Nothing is absolute, but we have questions about the quality category. From our perspective, we wonder about the condition of the home and how well it was understood. And we're wondering how equitably the appraisal model was applied to homes on Canyon Close. And I was trying to figure out how mass appraisal works. I don't know, I read stuff like land value plus the cost to build a new home and minus depreciation of age and wear multiplied by a market adjustment factor. And the last 2, I struggle to figure out what the appropriate inputs are, what weightings they might be, and how that might affect the actual assessment. So our concern is likely with the inputs and how that would affect the outputs going forwards. We don't really understand the standardized process used for depreciation and wear, nor do we have reasonable access to market adjustment factors as regular citizens. In the quality classification, standard versus semi-custom, I think that semi-custom would have higher grade materials and higher grade cabinets and trim, higher grade windows, upgraded mechanical systems, custom layouts, renovated kitchens and bathrooms, architectural detailing, significant upgrades, where standard homes more basic, more standard, typical. But I have no idea what factors go into that, other than to say that's what we were categorized as. Our home built in 1993, and this is evident in the MLS listing that was brought back to us post facto from July 1st. Built in 1993, it doesn't even have a bathtub on the top floor. The only one is in the basement, and it's super dated and DIY basement from a while ago, but we can't tell for sure because we just purchased the place. Mostly original standard double glazed windows. Some of them have been changed, and at least one of them has a leak in it, which we didn't notice till winter when the humidity gets in, and you can see that. It's the original furnace blower, original water tank, original Poly B, which severely limits home insurance options, which is related to price. Mostly original cabinets, floors, trim, and a list of documented deficiencies. There are so many things, and I as a couple, we really don't know what we're supposed to submit or how it goes. This is not, we'll leave it to the professionals. Based on these characteristics, we are at least closer to standard than semi-custom is what we expect. As far as we can tell from the evidence that the assessment seemed mostly on MLS sales photos. At least that's what they gave to us, and those are sales from the seller, which do not have a habit of documenting age, wear, market, and negative aspects of any home. Our sale price, as I said before, we purchased the home in late November 2025, and the respondent's comment said the difference between the sale price and the assessment is only $10,000, which is negligible in the context of residual market valuation, which does bring in the question, what is not negligible, what is the plus minus that you find appropriate, what is the error in all your assessment values. As soon as you tell me that it's negligible, and I would add over the selling price. So we understand that the point's being made. However, we believe this comparison does not reflect the full picture. The valuation date is supposed to be July 1st, 2025, as far as I know. Our sale occurred after this date. Post facto sales can help confirm trends from all I can read, but they should not set value. Our sales value did not fully reflect the actual condition of the home, since people buy and sell for a variety of reasons, and timing is definitely one of them. The model assumed a higher quality and condition than what we purchased is what we figured. I was trying to figure out what is the error range on their calculations, Alberta Assessment Standards, and please, I welcome you to correct me. My brief research into MRAT and ministerial guidelines are challenging, and I didn't spend years doing this. But I'm getting quick results of plus or minus 5% on the median and plus or minus 10 to 15% on individual homes. On a $1.6 million home, that's 5% is 80, 10% is 160, and 15% is 240. So the model's acceptable error range might be plus or minus 80, plus or minus 240. I have no idea. So respectfully, the $10,000 difference, we don't believe confirms that the original inputs were correct. Equity on our street, we reviewed all 50 homes on Canyon Close, and their assessment increased from last year to this year, which I am told and reminded that this is not how the mass appraisals work and market appraisals go. They don't go on the previous year. But it is a disturbing trend, and it does not seem equitable as the assessor suggests. Lower value homes increased by about 15%. Middle value homes on our street in our direct neighborhood increased by about 17%, and higher value homes increased 19 to 21%. The pattern suggests that higher value homes on our street, I didn't do all of Canmore's, too much stuff, but that's why my submissions were the actual assessed values over the last 6 years for all the places. The pattern suggests higher value homes were pushed harder by their model, which I actually don't understand. We believe our home was placed in the higher band due to the questionable quality classification and more generally the model's stratification bias shown in my brief analysis, meaning that our home was more expensive, and the more expensive homes on our street actually got a greater increase. And that was systematic, not intentional. Comparable sales, again, I have no idea how to do this. The respondent provided a small set of sales which may or may not be statistically representative and may or may not even be comparable. I can't decide. We're still curious how comparables are selected and why they're selected from only recently sold properties. Does that work better only in neighborhoods with higher turnovers? I actually don't know. We are still curious how the adjustments are made between properties that may not even be comparable. And that's not to diminish the actual challenge of it's hard. The adjusted sale price varies by hundreds of thousands of dollars on the comparables that they gave to us. We simply don't understand this. How is the sale price adjusted to July 1st, SPA calculated? I'm sure it's fairly complicated. How is the sale price adjusted to July 1st, taking into account to determine the assessment value? And what is done when there is no SPA, the home did not sell in a 3-year period? There's at least one that was not applicable. So final, I'm not here to spend a lot of time. It's Friday. We're going to have a nice week. It is my day off. When the inputs are corrected, quality, condition, market adjustment, and equity, a more equitable value from our perspective, and everybody has an opinion, is $1,585,000 from the previous last year's $1,412,000, which is a $170,000 year-over-year increase in assessed value. The assessor proposed an increase of slightly over $250,000 for this last year, which is not the 2023 peak. So that is really where we are. Really would like to thank the board sincerely for your time and attention. I can't imagine we'll have too much rebuttal with the assessors because we have more questions than answers for you. We also want to thank the assessors for their work that goes into preparing these assessments. We understand the complexity of the system and the volume of properties involved. Our intention today is not to criticize the system or the people working within it. Our intention is simply to ensure the assessment of our home reflects its true characteristics in an equitable manner. We respectfully ask the board to set the assessment closer to 1.585, which is closer to the Rocky Mountain Outlook 12.4% with adjustments for home quality. Thank you again for your opportunity that you've given me to present.
Thank you. And now I'll ask the respondent for any questions.
The only question I have at this time is for the appraisal report that was mentioned throughout your disclosure evidence, was it provided at any time?
It was not provided at any time. I thought that you were coming in to do your own independent, and we paid for that private report. So you were intended to come for a visit, and we offered two alternative dates that you were unable to go, and we were occupied on the day that you offered for the inspection. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'll ask you to stay, Mr. Arvesay, just in case we have any questions from the board. Nothing?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. I've seen you purchased, or you said you purchased the home recently. Have you seen the house in person or online only?
The house we visited
You did?
before purchase, yes.
One time, 2, 5 times, or?
2 times.
2 times, okay. And then I see it was listed for $1.995 million.
In August, I believe.
I just see that's the
that was the original listing, yes.
original list price. And then when you prepared the offer, was there any property inspection done?
There was a property inspection when the offer was prepared, and by November, it was down to, the list price was down to $175, with their egregious overpricing in a rising market, in my opinion, that they were going for. There's a house 3 doors down that I think it just came off the market, that just didn't sell because of similar pricing. But yes, I did do, we did pay for an inspection before we purchased, yeah.
Good idea. And that's why you found out the 100 deficiencies?
Yes,
Great. And then I see the final sale price is 1.665 million?
yes.
Perfect. All my questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. You may have a seat.
Thank you.
Okay, I will ask the respondent to give us their evidence.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. The respondent respectfully requests that the Assessment Review Board confirm the 2025 assessment for the 2026 taxation year for roll number 13426 at 330 Canyon Close at $1.675 million. Beginning with the testimonial evidence on page 3, the respondent will demonstrate 3 primary points. First, assessments in Alberta must be prepared annually. Second, the legislated valuation standard for the subject property is market value. And third, the assessments must be prepared in a fair and equitable manner through the process of mass appraisal. Turning to subject property on pages 4 and 6, the subject property is located at 330 Canyon Close within the Cougar Creek neighborhood of Canmore. The photographs, location map, and aerial images on pages 4, 5, and 6 illustrate the subject's property's location. Turning to the assessment summary on page 7, the property is classified as residential detached and assessed at $1.675 million. I would also like to mention now that there is a typo on this page of, just in the middle of the page there, you can see 631 Silvertip Road. That is, the official address is 330 Canyon Close, but that was just a typo that we had
Okay,
on there. Okay, so turning to the background section, beginning on page 8, property assessments in Alberta are governed by the Municipal Government Act in matters relating to assessment and taxation regulation. The legislation requires assessments to represent market value and be prepared through the application process of mass appraisal. As outlined on page 8, market value is defined as the amount that a property might reasonably be expected to realize if sold on the open market by a willing seller and a willing buyer. Assessments for the 2025 assessment year must estimate the market value of the property as of July 1st, 2025, and reflect the physical conditions of the property as of December 31st of 2025. Pages 8 and 9 explain the mass appraisal process. Unlike single property appraisal, mass appraisal analyzes groups of comparable properties using standardized valuation models and statistical testing. This methodology required by Alberta legislation, this methodology is required by Alberta legislation and ensures assessments are prepared in a fair and equitable manner across the municipality. Turning to pages 9 and 10, the respondent explains the valuation approaches available to the assessors. For detached residential properties within the town of Canmore, the market modified cost approach is utilized because it best reflects the actions of a buyer and seller in the marketplace, and there is sufficient sales information available to develop reliable market estimates. The town reviewed and validated residential sales occurring between July 1st of 2022 and June 30th of 2025. Those sales were analyzed and time adjusted where necessary to the legislated valuation date of July 1st of 2025. Turning to pages 12, the calculation of, give me 2 seconds. The calculation of assessment is provided. The residential ratepayer report identifies the physical characteristics of the property that were used in the assessment process. These include the lot size, dwelling style, the floor area, basement finish, attached garage, plumbing features, quality classification, and other contributory features. Turning now to the analysis and argument section on page 13. The primary basis of the complaint's argument is that the subject property's assessment increased by approximately 18.5%. From the previous year, while the town's reported average residential increase was by 12.4%. The respondent submits that this argument does not establish that the assessment is incorrect. As outlined by pages 13 and 14, assessments are annually prepared. Section 285 of the Municipal Government Act requires that each municipality prepare the assessment annually for each property. We've provided several board decisions and court decisions to support this. Accordingly, the relevant questions before the board is not whether the property increased by more than the municipal average. The relevant question is whether 1.675 million represents market value as of July 1st of 2025. The respondent submits that the complainant has not provided evidence demonstrating that it does not. The respondent also notes that the complainant relies on post facto purchase and other post valuation considerations. Pages 15 through 18 discuss the limitations with post facto evidence. The board may consider post facto evidence to confirm trends, but it cannot be used to establish value as of the valuation date. Turning to pages 15 through 18 discuss, I got lost here. Turning to pages 18 through 20, the complainant asserts that a professional inspection was conducted on October 24th, 2025, and identified more than 100 deficiencies with the home. However, despite repeated references to this inspection, the actual inspection report was never provided to the respondent. No inspection report was disclosed. No contractor quotations were disclosed. No repair estimates were disclosed. More importantly, no evidence was provided to demonstrate how the alleged deficiencies would reduce the market value by approximately $90,000. The board is therefore left only with a summary of alleged concerns rather than evidence capable of quantifying their impact on value. The respondent submits that limited weight should be given to those assertions. Furthermore, many of the concerns identified by the complainants represent typical age-related depreciation for a dwelling constructed in 1993. Original cabinetry, older windows, older mechanical systems, older finishings, and deferred updating are common characteristics found in many homes of similar age. These characteristics are already recognized through the depreciation built into the assessment model. The complainants have not demonstrated that a property suffers from any extraordinary physical or functional obsolescence beyond what is already reflected through the assessment process. Turning to pages 19 and 20, the complainants also argue that the semi-custom quality classification is inappropriate. The respondent would disagree. The quality classification definitions used by the town identify semi-custom homes as those exhibiting an above-average construction quality, enhanced architectural design, upgraded materials, and additional design features beyond that of standard construction. The MLS information included in the respondent's disclosure supports the semi-custom classification. The dwelling contains a more complex roof line than a typical home, a vaulted two-story living space, large feature windows, and upgraded design elements, including custom stone fireplace and surround. Based on the review of the information in MLS photographs, the respondent remains satisfied that the semi-custom classification is appropriate. Turning to pages 21 and 22, the respondent validates the assessment using comparable sales from the same neighborhood. These properties are two-story homes with basements and are of comparable quality classifications. The sales support the assessment of the subject property. I would also like to mention that the first comparable on pages 22 or on pages 21, which is 305 Lady MacDonald Crescent, is the strongest comparable referenced on this chart. We would comment this because it has it has 2 years difference in age only, and it has a similar floor area while having a slightly different lot area, with it being generally around 1,500 below in lot area. The strongest evidence before the board may be the complainant's own purchase of the subject property. The property transferred on February 3rd, 2026 for $1,665,000. The assessment is $1,675,000. The difference between the purchase price and the assessment is only $10,000, which represents less than 1% of the actual property's value. Although the sale occurred after the valuation date and therefore cannot be directly relied upon to establish value, it nevertheless confirms that a willing buyer and a willing seller transacted at a value essentially identical to the assessment. The respondent submits that this strongly supports the reasonableness of the assessment. Turning to pages 23 and 24, the complainants rely on a comparable property of 327 Gagnon Close. The respondent submits that this property is not a strong comparable. It is a split-level dwelling, whereas the subject is a two-story home with a basement. In addition, there has not been a sale of that property since 2013. The respondent therefore submits that it provides limited assistance in determining market value as of the July 1st, 2025 date. Turning finally to the summary on page 25, the respondent submits that the complainants have failed to provide sufficient evidence to establish that the assessment is incorrect. The complainant relies heavily on annual percent increases rather than market value evidence. The actual inspection report or repair estimates have not supported the alleged The alleged inspection reports or repair estimates have not supported the alleged inspection deficiencies, nor has any estimates or any other information been provided on why these might have a direct influence on value. The comparable evidence relied upon by the complainant is limited. More importantly, the complainants themselves purchased the property for $1,665,000, which is essentially the same as the assessed value of $1,675,000. For all of these reasons, the respondent respectfully submits that the assessment was prepared in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, the matters relating to assessment and taxation regulation, accepted mass appraisal practices, and the legislated market value standard. Accordingly, the respondent respectfully requests that the Assessment Review Board confirm the 2025 assessment for the 2026 taxation year at $1,675,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bannerman. Mr. Arvesay, do you have any questions for the respondent? If so, I would ask you to come up to the podium, please.
It's red. Red means stop. It's so confusing. It's supposed to be red for hot. Yeah. So most of my questions is because the evidence that they've given are what they do and not the how. So what is your list of characteristics in finding a comparable? As we find it impossible as a residential homeowner to find a comparable because we don't know the characteristics and we don't have access to the information. We cannot do this reliably. It is unbalanced from our point. So how do you find the comparables? What's your list of characteristics that you use?
For sure. How we find comparables is we typically find properties that have similar characteristics, such as structure type, which would be, for example, in this case, two-story and basement homes. And then we also find things that are related to quality class. So we want to find comparables that have similar quality classifications to your own property.
Cool. How do you figure out quality class?
Quality class is something we determine by, as I said in my report, structural differences to the property, construction and finishings that are used.
I just asked how is that determined, not what are the characteristics of a quality report.
Typically what we do is we do inspections, or we go and we do inspections to properties when they were being constructed. But we also do an annual reinspection program where we look across multiple properties in Canmore, usually doing as many interior inspections as we can. And then we also look at the outside
What's your
features of the
sample
property.
rate for inspections?
Sorry?
What is your sample rate for inspections? I know you do them.
Like, how many do we do per year, or?
In Canmore, what is the percentage of properties that you do annual inspections for
I would refer
to determine the quality?
to Deanne Betterman.
Yeah, so as part of IAAO standards, we're required to, or it's suggested that we inspect the properties once every 5 years. So that is around a 20% mark of regular re-inspections that we do on an annual basis. However, the numbers that we do for re-inspections hits a much higher level than that. When we're looking at a regular re-inspection program, we're looking at specific neighborhoods that haven't been done for a longer time so that we can address issues such as renovations that maybe they didn't have a permit for, and just to ensure that the data is correct and that everything's consistent on throughout the neighborhoods. And so of course, that's what's being used in their stratification. But of course, anytime we get an inquiry, anytime we find an issue with, say, an apartment complex, we're re-inspecting those as well throughout the year. So it's in addition to our regular re-inspection program.
So there's no percentage that you actually do? You just have a target? Or do you have a number for our neighborhood? 'Cause I would still have a hard time figuring out what the benchmark is for your stats.
Sure, and so the Cougar Creek neighborhood actually was inspected over the last year. We did a re-inspection program there, so that's the most recent that it's been. But like I said, if we do once every 5 years is the standard that we hold, which we surpass, then we're well over 20% in a year that we're re-inspecting of the residential inventory.
You're re-inspecting 20% of Cougar Creek once every 5 years?
100% of Cougar Creek every 5 years.
Because you're doing 20%.
20% of the entire residential inventory everywhere in town.
In town? Okay.
Yes, so 100% of yours once every 5 years, 20% for the entire town.
And so why do you go by sold listings when you're doing comparables and not your own assessments? Inspections, are the other numbers not reliable?
I'm not sure if I understood your question.
Well, when we're doing comparables, you're going by recently sold, and recently could be 1, 2, or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that your 20%, so every 5-year turnover, those numbers are not reliable enough to use as comparables? Because there are likely more comparables that have not been sold. And those would be more relevant, especially more than the quoted court decisions and board decisions for homes that we have no idea for in other municipalities.
Sure, so I believe, if I understood your question, I believe you're talking about two distinct pieces of what we do for when we're preparing assessments. So the first piece being the reinspection cycle, which is the 20% minimum per year that we conduct. So that's done to all properties, whether they sell or they don't sell. And that's done to ensure that the data, which is the inputs into our assessment models, are correct. The second piece that you're mentioning, I believe, is with regards to the sales that we use in preparing the assessments to determine what the market value is as of the valuation date. So we use 3 years of sales, as mentioned in Grayson's presentation. And those sales are time adjusted or adjusted for the market conditions of that July 1st, 2025. So we're talking about two different things. The 5 years is making sure our data is correct for everything that sold or didn't sell. And when we're preparing the assessments, we're only looking at the sales because those are the best indications of the market value of the property.
So the determination on comparables in terms of quality and age and how they've been renewed is not related to your 20% a year inspections and only on properties that sold.
That's correct.
For whatever reason they sold.
That's correct, because they're the best indicators of the market value.
And
They're what was used in the preparation of the assessments, and they're the best information to bring to the board and to the complainant to show support for the assessment.
Awesome. And that's the last 3 years where the market peak was 3 years ago? So it includes market peak analysis
I-
on your comparables?
Yeah, and so none of the information that has been provided by the complainant has demonstrated that there was a market peak 3 years ago. None of the information that we've seen in the preparation of assessments, even towards the 12.5% average residential increase, which, by the way, includes apartment condos and detached homes, suggests that in any way the market peaked 3 years ago.
What are your numbers for market percentage increase over the years? Are there any? Do you not look at the market on a mass market appraisal?
I believe I've answered the questions on how the assessments are prepared. And as we mentioned, Grayson mentioned it in his presentation, we're looking at this year's assessment, and we're not looking at last year's assessments, as last year's assessments do not predicate what the current year's assessment is. So when we're looking at that, we're looking at the overall market value, and properties change in percentage changes. We'll have a range of values. Areas that have been re-inspected will have more variation between percent changes, as well as differences in market preferences. So I believe that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. The other one was contractor quotations. I thought I did not require any quotations or estimates for ballparking in Canmore, $40,000 for concrete foundation, spalled, cracked, front and back, unleveled, ballparking $10,000 for.
Mr. Orbise, sorry to interrupt you, but right now you're just asking the respondent questions regarding their evidence and not providing any new evidence, and we will also not hear evidence that has not been
thank you.
submitted in disclosure.
It actually is not evidence. He asked me about contractor quotations. I don't think that's my responsibility to provide contractor quotations, and if you have a number of, if you expected that, you maybe should have asked for it, in my opinion, and it takes a long time to do that. That's on my question. Are you allowed to, was I supposed to submit contractor quotations for every deficiency?
We would hold, as the respondent, that the burden of evidence lies on the complainant in disproving our assessment for the 2025 tax or assessment year. So it is not, it would be up to the respondent or the complainant to provide that evidence it would be on the complainant to provide that evidence. Thank you.
Awesome. That would be awesome if we knew that ahead of time, that quotations were required. I didn't read that in the legislation. What are the characteristics of above average quality? You've given, is every stone fireplace and a living room window with a changed roof line in Canmore an upgrade in quality?
We would say that for the semi-custom classification, those type of architectural features are in line with the pictures we have on pages 34, 35, 36 to 37, and 38 and 39. Some of these features that would be defined as semi-custom would be the architectural features such as vaulted ceilings, stone masonry around your fireplace, and sloping windows, and other general architectural design that you have, that we've seen your property present. And we have also looked at neighboring properties, which are also attached in our disclosure document. So the comparable properties that we used, as well as your comparable properties, and they're all of the same quality classification.
Awesome, thank you. And you were referring to the MLS, pictures in the MLS listing prepared for by the seller?
I was, yes.
Okay, thanks. You had a question? Yes. Come on up.
I just wanted to go back to the conversation about one factor is doing inspections, and the other factor is the sale adjusted price. So my question is, what is used to houses that haven't sold?
Sure. So when we're preparing assessments, we only have the information for the market on the properties that sold. So we call this the knowns. And what we do is we look at all of these knowns, which are the sales, and we prepare the valuation models for each of the stratifications, looking at the differences in the property characteristics and what proportion potential purchaser or actual purchasers are prepared to spend for those various different features. So that goes into the development of our valuation model. So then we're talking about the unknowns, which are the properties that did not sell during that valuation period, so for those 3 years. So the same valuation models that were used to, that were created by the sales are then applied to all the unknowns. So that exact same valuation model that was created by the sales is applied to every other property within that stratification, whether they sold or not.
Yeah, so I have a hard time understanding why they don't have a sale price adjusted to July 1st. That it's, and like, I was surprised to see NA not applicable, I guess.
Sure, and that's because they hadn't sold during that 3-year valuation period. So we weren't using them in the preparation of assessments. So when we're preparing assessments, as mentioned in our presentation, we're looking at that 3 years worth of time, but we're also adjusting those 3 years worth of sales to the market conditions as of that July 1st, 2025 date. So anything prior to that, we wouldn't have the, we don't even bother adjusting them. So the one assessment comparable that was referenced, that we had the NA for, Grayson had referenced that it sold last in 2013. We're not looking at those sales when we're preparing the assessments. We're looking at the data still. The data is still important on those properties, but we're using those most current sales that are adjusted to that common date to develop the valuation models, which is why those are the ones that you're seeing a time-adjusted sale price and not the other ones.
Yeah, like I'm just trying to understand this mass appraisal model and that formula is being used. So in houses that have sold, you have that sale adjusted price factor. In their houses that haven't been sold, it's NA. So I'm trying to understand the difference. How come you don't apply a theoretical sale adjusted price to those homes and put it in the same formula? Just trying to and what you're saying, I don't understand the difference.
Sure, and what I would suggest is that rather than looking at it just on, the time-adjusted sale price that we have or the market-adjusted sale price that we've included on the chart, the property assessments are the estimate of the market value. So market value is the sale. The assessments are the estimate of the market value. So when you're looking and trying to compare, like the sale that we had as an NA, the assessment is reflecting what the market value is. So that would be in lieu of a sale occurring on that property. We're using the ones that we know, and the assessment is showing what their worth is.
Yeah, and so that house that we were talking about, 327 Canyon Close, is actually the house that was listed at the same time that we purchased 330 Canyon Close, and it was listed at $1.99 million. I think your assessment is showing around 1.5, something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, and I think they may have dropped the price to 1.89, and now it's off the market again, so that's why there's no sales data associated to it, but it was one of the ones that we looked at as well at the same time. Yeah. And it's fully renovated inside. And it has
Sure.
It has more bathrooms than ours.
Sure.
And to point out, the fireplace in our unit was highlighted in our inspection report as being a safety concern because it doesn't have any guarding. So it's probably for that reason and the fact that we only have one bathroom upstairs to a 3-bedroom house and there's no bathtub, it's not a good candidate for a family home for those 2 main reasons.
So just to respond to your question, so there's 2 pieces there. The first being is that we don't rely on listings, and for the exact example that you stated, it started out at 1.9, went down to 1.8, and then it was taken off the market until we have a reliable sale transaction, so it was actually purchased and transferred through Alberta Land Titles. we don't consider them in the valuation because a listing could just be, you could have a potential seller out there who's just kind of fishing in the market. Maybe they've listed it high and just want to see what they'll get in like a Canmore market. So that's why we don't use them. Yeah, until they're actually done and completed, we don't use them. The other part of it is that, as mentioned, Grayson has mentioned, and I believe I have as well, is that it is the property assessments are directly attributable to the property characteristics in them themselves. As Grayson mentioned, the property was a split level versus yours a 2-story and basement. The property only has 1,300 square feet of floor area, above grade floor area, whereas your property has 2,100 square feet of floor area. So those are the types of differences that would account for differences in the assessed value. So if that property went on the market again, we would think that probably the original listing was a little bit high for it, unless the market is continuing to increase, which we won't know until next year's assessment, but that's the...
Just one last question is that the two comparables that were provided to us, the two comparables that were provided to us, the sale adjusted price was really high for one compared to the assessment value. And the other one, the sale adjusted price was lower, but the assessment was actually higher. How does that work out?
Certainly. So with time adjustments comparative to sales, we don't. This is why we use mass appraisal models in the first place, is because there is a range whenever a sale occurs. So sales can vary, like depending on a specific month or a specific time of season, or specific demands between buyers and sellers. You have considerations such as if a buyer perhaps wants to sell, or if a seller wants to sell their property faster because they want to move to somewhere quicker. So all of these considerations could change the value of a property between a willing buyer and willing seller. So we're not trying to get an exact estimate, or we're not trying to get an assessment that's an exact estimate of the sale price. What we're trying to do is get an estimate that reflects a value or the market value of a property in a theoretical market with a willing buyer and a willing seller with between...
I don't think that answers my question. I just want to give the example. 5 Canyon Road was sale adjusted price is $2.1 million. The assessment is $1.83 million. 328 Canyon Close, which is 2 doors down from us, the sale adjusted price is $1.7 million.
Yep.
And the assessment is $1.82 million.
Sure, and so I think what Grayson was attempting to explain was that when we're preparing assessments, we're using all of the sales of that single grouping. So that's part of the mass appraisal component. And because the behavior between a seller and a buyer is not perfect behavior, it's not an exact thing, we're always going to get a range in what we would call an assessment to sales ratio. So that difference that you're talking is the difference between the assessment and the time adjusted sale price. We would call that an assessment to sales ratio. So you're always going to get a range in those ratios because we're not setting the assessments to be exactly the same as their sale price. We can't. That's against what the legislation tells us how to do property assessments. So we're looking at all of those sales of similar properties. Some of them are going to have that assessment to sales ratio higher, and some of them are going to be lower. But as long as we've got our models that are created so that everything balances out and is predicting, it's softening those jagged edges, I think, if that makes sense.
So that's why I'm trying to
yeah.
understand what are the other factors involved, because as far as I understand, 5 Canyon Road is, their backyards are facing onto Cougar Creek. They have a beautiful, like a west-facing view.
Yeah, and we take into account if they're abutting Cougar Creek, we do take that into account in the valuation process as well.
So then why would the assessment be the same when their adjusted sale price had a 300,000 difference?
Yeah, and I think
So I just,
Yeah. No,
like, You're
Yeah.
not answering my questions, I guess.
So I just have one final question. We're promised to be done within the hour. It does relate to that, and thank you for arguing our point, is that that's a plus 200,000 and a minus 100,000 difference from your data. That is exactly what our concern is. And the last question is that I don't know if I misheard. Did you tell me that you don't know the market increases or decreases, or whether a market has peaked over the last 3 years, is what I understood? I might be wrong on that.
I would say that that is not relevant to our assessment process due
Okay.
to us relying on sales data of the market itself. So we only rely on sales that have occurred throughout the July 1st, 2022 date to the June 30th, 2025 date. And we've already discussed the reasons
Okay.
why we do that,
No,
but that is the only hard data that we have.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It just seems like your mass appraisal ignores the market, but that's fine. How do we conclude?
And any further questions from you for the respondents?
I have no further questions. It's been enlightening, and thank you for all the information volunteered by everybody in the room.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? None. Okay. Then we will actually go back to you, Mr. Arvice, as you submitted rebuttal evidence. Do you wish to provide anything further on that?
I don't believe I'm in a position to provide any further evidence. I still don't have the proper characteristics of any assessed numbers that I can do to reliably make any difference with a plus or minus. It's literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I don't have any other evidence or questions to introduce. I'm not capable at this point in time, reasonably anyways.
Okay, if that is the case, then I will, your wife has
Sorry, I know we've had a few disagreements, or not disagreements, but maybe one more evidence is also, I just want to, to me, a sale price includes the realtor fees, which is significant in a $1.6 million house. So versus assessment values.
So, Ms., I just have to, this was not part of any of your evidence that was submitted to the board, so we can't hear any new evidence or any new arguments, so I'm asking if you
I don't
have
know,
anything
is it
further on your
considered
rebuttal evidence?
Is it considered evidence? Because it's just, that's the fact. Realtor fees are part of a sales. An assessment, to me, should not take that into consideration. Anyway,
Sure, just for.
So the realtor fees are borne by the seller, not by the purchaser. And the seller has the option of whether they want to enlist a real estate agent or just sell the property privately. So when we're looking at that, that's a service that the seller is providing. But when we're looking at what the market value actually is, it's what the buyer is willing to pay. So that type of addition that the seller is paying for is a service to help them sell their house. It's not in the market. It's excluded from the market value of the property.
yeah, I don't have it. Can I can I comment back on that? or- No, okay. Yeah, fine.
Oh, and actually, we're coming back to you for
Okay.
your final summation to the board on your argument, if you have anything further or what you would like to leave the board with from your arguments.
Yeah, respectfully, in our opinion, we think the final assessment should be closer to 1,585, and that's due to the rapidly changing market value, which I understand is not exactly, their assessment is close to our final price. I'm not blind to this fact, but that price was at a different time, and as they conveniently argued, that people buy and sell for a lot of different reasons. Our net gain here is not to make life difficult for everybody, it's probably a $430 savings a year. Like, in perspective for this whole process and all the people in the room, we're respectfully asking that it should be closer to 585 and not a $250,000 increase over a $1.4 million house in the last year. Thank you.
Thank you. I will ask the respondent for their summation.
The respondent submits that the complainants have failed to provide sufficient evidence to establish that the assessment is incorrect. The complainant relies heavily on percent change and other market evidence that isn't supported by the mass appraisal practices or assessment practices. The complainant's evidence relied upon, or the comparable evidence relied upon by the complainants is limited. More importantly, the complainants themselves purchased the property for $1.665 million, which is essentially the same as the assessed value. For all of these reasons, the respondent respectfully submits that the assessment is prepared in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, the matters relating to the assessment and taxation regulation, accepted mass appraisal principles, and the legislated market value standard. Accordingly, the respondent respectfully submits that the Assessment Review Board confirm the 2025 assessment for the 2026 taxation year at $1.675 million. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bannerman. Any final comments from you, Mr. Arvice? Thank you, everyone, for your cooperation and for your helpful presentations. At this time, I would like to ask the parties if they feel they have been heard today and if they feel that they have received a fair hearing.
Yes.
Thank you. I will now declare the hearing closed. No further evidence or submissions may be received by the board. Thank you, and we will take a 10-minute break to 10:15. Oh, sorry. The Municipal Government Act requires a written decision within 30 days and gives the clerk an additional 7 days to issue the decision. We will make every effort to meet or beat those requirements, and the clerk will forward our decision to you at our earliest opportunity. We will now take a 10-minute break until 10:15 before we proceed to the next hearing. Thank you.
Okay, we're just starting our connection, and I'm hoping that everything works out.
Okay.
Briar.
Should I dismiss this?
Yes.
Okay, I know.
Thank you for your patience, Mr. Rubin. Good morning and welcome to this Canmore Local Assessment Review Board hearing. I would like to remind everyone that the ARB hearings are open to the public.
Excuse me for interrupting. The voice loudness is a little muted. Could you speak up a bit louder, please?
I would like to remind everyone that the ARB hearings are open to the public and that this hearing will be recorded and streamed live. The video recording will be our record of hearing. And I'm just going to check, Mr. Rubin, can you hear me better now?
I can. I think it's just a matter of you speaking closer to the mic.
Yes, will do. We are here today to review the complainant and subsequent evidence as filed for tax roll 17791, municipal address of 145 Silvertip Ridge. I will start by introducing the panel and then ask the parties to introduce themselves. After that, I will explain our standard hearing procedure and ask for comments in that regard. My name is Anita Furlan, and I am the presiding officer appointed to this panel. The other panel members with me today are...
Good morning. My name is Jen Marin. I am a panel member and also Town of Canmore Council representative.
My name is Christoph Breyer.
Can you just go a little bit slower? Chairwoman, can you just give me, I got your first name as Anita, but I did not get your last name. So just slowly for me, please.
Certainly, my last name is Furlan, F-U-R-L-A-N.
F-U-R-L-A-N?
F-U-R-L-A-N.
Okay. And I got the other members, if you could be slowly and distinct.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Rubin. My name is Jen, Jen, and the last name is Marin, M-A-R-R-A-N.
M-A-R-R-A-N. Great. And the other panel member, please.
My name is Christoph Breyer, C-H-R-I-S-T.
Wait. It's an unusual name. Can you spell your first name slowly, please?
Yes, C-H-R-I...
C-H-R...
I-S-T-O-P-H. Christopher.
And your last name, please?
Breyer, B-R-A-I-E-R.
B-R-A-I-E-R. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have an objection to the panel as constituted?
No.
I'm now going to have the parties introduce themselves, starting with the complainant. Would you please state for the record your name, organization, and your role in the hearing? Please indicate whether you are the owner of the property under complaint. Mr. Rubin?
My name is Warren Rubin. I am the property owner, and I'm appearing in this proceeding pro se.
Thank you. Now to the respondent.
My name is Deanne Bannerman. I'm with Legacy Municipal Services, and I am the appointed assessor for the Town of Canmore.
Thank you. The Local Assessment Review Board standard practice is to have the complainant present all of their evidence first, followed by questions from the respondent and then the panel. Next, the respondent presents their evidence, followed once again by questions from the complainant and then the panel. The complainant will have an opportunity for rebuttal. Finally, both parties will have an opportunity to present their final argument and summarize their evidence for the panel, with the complainant presenting first. If anyone needs a break, or if a problem comes up, please let the panel know as soon as possible, and we can address those things as we go. I will also take this time to remind everyone to please turn off any mobile devices. Are there any questions regarding the procedure today, or is everyone satisfied with the process as laid out?
I'm fine with it. It's Warren Rubin.
I see both parties have exchanged disclosure evidence before the hearing. To save time, I propose that we mark all documents for the record now. That won't stop anyone raising questions about admissibility later. If any such questions arise, we can still deal with them and strike material from the record later if necessary. Is everyone comfortable with this procedure?
Yes.
Madam Clerk?
For tax roll 17791, we have received complaint package marked C1, the complaint form of 4 pages. We have received the complainant package marked C2, the complainant disclosure of 1 page. The complainant package marked C3, the complainant rebuttal of 20 pages. The respondent package marked R1, the respondent disclosure of 46 pages. And the respondent package marked R2, the respondent preliminary issue of 10 pages.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Rubin, we are ready to hear.
Thank you very much. I appreciate.
Sorry, Mr. Rubin, I apologize. I just skipped over a step. Are there any preliminary issues for the panel to address? Okay, and the respondent has one.
Thank you. So the respondent requests that the board determine whether the document submitted by the complainant on June 21st, 2026, which was identified as Appendix B, constitutes proper rebuttal evidence, and if not, whether it should be excluded from consideration in accordance with the disclosure requirements contained within the Municipal Government Act and the matters relating to assessment complaints regulation and the applicable case law that we've provided. So first, turning to the issues before the board on page 3, there are 2 questions for determination. First, whether the complainant's rebuttal submission contains additional issues or information that ought to have been included in the complainant's original disclosure package. Second, whether that rebuttal should be excluded for non-compliance with the legislated disclosure requirements and principles established by the courts. So beginning on page 4, the facts are straightforward. The complainant submitted Appendix B on June 21st, 2026. However, pursuant to the notice of hearing, the complainant's disclosure deadline was June 4th, 2026. The rebuttal document was therefore provided after the original disclosure deadline and after the respondent had already prepared and submitted its disclosure. The law is clear that rebuttal evidence is not an opportunity for a complainant to strengthen, supplement, or complete their original case. And in this case, new issues, I think, have been presented since both on the complaint form and any subsequent information on the rebuttal, no actual issues have been identified. Rather, the rebuttal evidence should only be permitted in limited circumstances. So as outlined on page 4, there are 2 requirements that must both be met. First, the evidence must be necessary to answer a matter first raised by the respondent, And second, it must be information that the complainant could not reasonably have anticipated when preparing their original case. If both requirements are not met, the evidence is not proper rebuttal evidence. So the purpose of these requirements is grounded in procedural fairness. A complainant is not permitted to withhold evidence, wait to see the respondent's position, and then provide additional information afterwards to improve their case. Doing so deprives the respondent of a meaningful opportunity to review and respond to the evidence. As noted in the disclosure, this allows a party to split a case, which is contrary to the principles of natural justice. So the legislative authority in matters relating to Section Assessment and Complaints Regulation, Section 5, Sub 2C of the regulation permits rebuttal evidence only where it is intended to respond to the respondent's disclosure and has provided in sufficient detail to allow the response. The provision contemplates true rebuttal evidence, not additional evidence that should have formed part of the complainant's original disclosure. Beginning on page 5, the respondent has provided a series of court and assessment review board decisions that consistently define and limit the use of rebuttal evidence. I will summarize the principles that emerge from these decisions. The leading authority is the Supreme Court of Canada's decision in R versus Krauss. The court held that parties are generally permitted from splitting their case. A party must present all relevant information and evidence supporting its position during its initial case. Rebuttal is permitted only when the opposing party raises new issues that could not reasonably have been anticipated. The purpose of this rule is to prevent unfair surprise and ensure that each party knows the full case it must meet. The Alberta courts have repeatedly adopted this same principle, and all confirm that rebuttal evidence cannot be used to introduce information that was available to a party at the time of its original disclosure. Rebuttal cannot be used to repair deficiencies in a case, add supporting evidence that should have been disclosed earlier, or provide evidence that a party simply chose not to disclose initially, nor should it be used to raise additional issues that were not disclosed in advance. Of particular importance is the GSL Chevrolet Cadillac decision referenced on page 8 and 9 of our submission. In that case, the court confirmed that a complainant bears the burden of proving that its case from the outset. The complainant cannot justify late evidence by arguing that it did not know how the municipality would defend the assessment. The court held that if evidence supports the complainant's position, it should be included in the original disclosure package. Any failure to do so rests with the complainant. The board's authority to exclude improper rebuttal evidence is also well established and confirms that the boards have both the authority and the responsibility to reject evidence that does not comply with disclosure requirements where admission would be unfair to the opposing party. This was R2.
Madam Clerk. I just sent you a message. The board has not received the R2 rebuttal evidence for this preliminary
I cannot
issue.
hear you. Please speak up.
Mr. Rubin, I was just saying that as the board, we have not received this secondary rebuttal respondent evidence regarding this preliminary issue, and I am asking the clerk to ensure that we have all received this. And Madam Clerk, do you need a
understand.
break?
Well, if you want, and I can, but I think it's a very simple response to it. And I think you have the initial papers that the assessor filed, and my response is very simple, and I will explain if I can. If you
Mr.
look at-
Rubin, I'm actually going to stop you there. This is a preliminary issue that has been brought up by the respondent, and I'm going to allow Ms. Bannerman to continue to provide her testimony
Okay.
regarding that, and then the board will actually have to take a short break so that we can deliberate on this. we will not be hearing.
Well, I would like to have the opportunity to respond to her argument. I think that fairness dictates that, and I think that's the appropriate thing to do.
Okay, I'm going to ask that the board have a 10-minute recess so that we can review this document, and then we'll come back to Ms. Vanaren and then to yourself, Mr. Rubin.
That's fair.
Thank you. We'll reconvene at 10:45. Okay, thank you very much for the break for the panel. We have now received the two missing documents, so I will ask the respondent to continue on with your preliminary evidence.
Sure, and I'll try and, I didn't write down where I left off, so apologies.
Yeah,
Okay,
fair
I
enough,
apologize
thank
if there's a little bit of redundancy. So the Alberta courts have repeatedly adopted this same principle and all confirm that rebuttal evidence cannot be used to introduce information that was available to a party at the time of its original disclosure. Rebuttal cannot be used to repair deficiencies in a case, add supporting evidence that should have been disclosed earlier, or provide evidence that a party simply chose not to disclose initially. And that includes issue identification or raising additional issues. Of particular importance is the GSL Chevrolet Cadillac decision, referenced on pages 8 and 9. In that case, the court confirmed that a complainant bears the burden of proving its case from the outset. A complainant cannot justify late evidence by arguing that it did not know how the municipality would defend the assessment. The court held that if evidence supports the complainant's position, it should have been included in the original disclosure package. Any failure to do so rests with the complainant. The board's authority to exclude improper rebuttal evidence is also well established and confirms that boards have both the authority and the responsibility to reject evidence that does not comply with disclosure requirements where admission would be unfair to the opposing party. So applying those principles to the present matter, the respondent submits that the information contained within Appendix B is not true rebuttal evidence. It does not respond to a new issue that first arose from the respondent's disclosure. Rather, it consists of information that was available to the complainant and could have been provided in the original disclosure package by the June 4th deadline. Allowing that information to be introduced now would effectively permit the complainant to supplement or improve its original case after the respondent's disclosure. And in this case, raise additional issues. Additional issues have been raised, I think, by the complainant. Accordingly, the respondent respectfully requests that the board determine that Appendix B does not meet the legal test for rebuttal evidence and that it be excluded from consideration. So finally, I would like to briefly address the valuation methodology discussed on page 10 as it relates to some of the information contained within the complainant's submissions. The board has consistently recognized that, and sorry, that was my R1, page 10, I apologize. The board has consistently recognized that a simple unit of comparison analysis, such as averaging values on a per square foot basis and applying them directly to the subject property, are not reliable valuation methods. Such approaches fail to account for differences in the property characteristics. So for these reasons, the respondent respectfully requests that the board exclude the complainant's June 21st, 2026 Appendix B submission from evidence and proceed with the hearing based solely on the properly disclosed materials. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bannerman. Mr. Rubin, I know you wanted a moment to respond to this, and I will ask that your response be specific to the preliminary issue concerning the disclosure being made after the June 4th deadline and not the contents within your Exhibit B. Go ahead.
It's fine. I would just start out by pointing out to the respondents, I'm going to call her the assessor, for lack of a better term. I think it's easier. And just by way of background, I am a practicing attorney. I've practiced law for 55 years as a commercial litigator. Of course, I practice in the courts of the United States and not in Canada. I'm calling from Pennsylvania. I'm a member of good standing of the Pennsylvania Bar, and I seriously take the challenges which the assessors put forth. So with that background, I'd like to proceed. Okay?
Go ahead.
Thank you. On page, just not in front of me, I think it's page 15 of the assessor's initial brief. There's a chart.
Okay,
All of the information that I have in Exhibit B is based on that chart. I didn't add anything other than the compilation of additions and percentages, but all of the information on Exhibit B comes from the assessor's own chart in response to my initial complaint. So what I did, I just responded to that chart. That's all it is. It's nothing more and nothing less. So factually, it does meet the requirements of the assessor's claim that I did something new. I didn't do anything new. I just took her chart and rearranged the numbers. It's as simple as that. And when one compares the chart that I put on Exhibit B with her chart on page 15, which is interesting, is not cited at all in her papers to dismiss Exhibit B, I find particularly interesting. So that it's, I'm trying to see my notes here that I've got spread out. But that's basically it. I think the old adage, when the facts are against you, you pound the table and argue the law sometimes. But this is a situation where the facts are clearly on my side as far as and applying the law. The chart on page 15, and you examine that chart and you look at Exhibit B, are the identical numbers. There's nothing that's been added. There's nothing been subtracted. They are the same numbers that she used in responding to the complaint. So to purge my Exhibit B, I think is contrary to the law, which she actually cites. And there's another point I want to add right now, and it's a procedural thing which I think this panel must take into consideration, and that is Ms. Bennerman an attorney?
I am an assessor. I am not an attorney. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Are you representing the township in this matter?
I'm representing the town of Canmore. Council is not part of this process, nor do we report to town council.
Okay, are you either a corporation or professional corporation in your business?
so Mr. Rubin, what is the relevance to
I'm
any
going to
of this?
tell you in a minute, but I've got to get a factual predicate for this, and I'll tell you why. Because there may be an unauthorized practice of law according to the canons of ethics of the province of Alberta.
So just to answer your question, we are bound by the assessor's ethics, and it is very typical and acceptable and actually suggested that we refer to documented court legal decisions, assessment review board decisions, since they form case law. So we're required to follow the provincial legislation as well as provincial case law. And so there's nothing that is outside of our ethical standards.
Would you answer my question, please? Are you either a corporation or professional corporation in your business?
Yeah, and so I'm here today as an independent assessor representing the town. So regardless of whether I work for a corporation is irrelevant to this process.
It's highly relevant. I'm going to explain why. If the Alberta Rules of Court have just enacted new rules, and one of the rules is very clear that a non-attorney cannot, under any circumstances, represent a party in a court. Particularly if they're a corporation, it's open to whether or not.
Excuse me, Mr. Rubin, this is not a court of law.
I know it's not.
This is a
I know.
local assessment review board. So this is not the same as a court of law.
I wanted to lay a foundation that I have raised the issue. If there's going to be an appeal, that this matter should be in the record.
Okay.
If it's not in the record, she would probably argue that I've waived it. I'm not waiving it. I just want to get some factual basis and predicate for this. She has not answered the question of whether or not she's a professional corporation or her organization works for a corporation or she has a corporation. I would like the answer to that question. I would ask the panel to direct her to answer the question.
Yeah, so the company that I work for is a corporation. However, excuse me, I'll answer the question. So I am here, if you look at the first page, the cover page, of my submissions, that both the preliminary issue and my original disclosure, you will see presented by Deanne Bannerman, AMAA, so that is my professional accreditation. As the chair of this board has mentioned, this is a quasi-judicial board. It is not a legal board, court in Alberta. So there is no type of challenge that you can make as to me referencing legal decisions.
I beg to differ, and I will cite you the law and the case law in Alberta, which you are not familiar with, but you should be, because you're practicing as an attorney in front of a court and representing a corporation, and you're representing the town at the same time. It's
Mr.
clear.
Rubin, again, I'm going to challenge you in the question of you saying this is a court. This is not
And
a court
I
of
said
law.
it's a quasi-judicial authority. And
Yes.
let me cite you the case law. Let me cite you the rules of professional conduct of the province of Alberta, which is
Excuse me?
extremely clear.
Excuse me,
Thank
I
you.
would object to anything being referenced at this point to question my credentials. I have the credentials required to present to the Assessment Review Board. I have my professional accreditation, and if there's any type of legal challenge that occurs after this, that would be the avenue for it to appear in rather than at this tribunal.
I will just read the new rules for the record, and then we can go on. But I just want to lay a foundation that's part of the record, and I will read it now. The new rules of the Alberta Rules of Court, Rule 2.23 specifically states that the limited assistance that may be provided by a party by a non-lawyer must not contravene Section 106(1) of the Legal Professional Act. That section prohibits non-lawyers from commencing, carrying on, or defending an action on behalf of other persons. That is what it says, that's what the law is, and that's what the rules of professional
Mr.
conduct
Rubin,
are.
it has been noted, it is on record. Now we'll ask to move on, and we will deal
Okay.
with the preliminary issue. Do you have anything to say on that specific regarding the disclosure other than what has already been presented by yourself?
If you look at page 15, as I said, and you compare the chart, which is Exhibit B, they're identical.
Thank you.
Except I just transposed the numbers.
Thank you. The board is now going to take a 15-minute break to decide on that. Oh,
I just had one response to what Mr. Rubin had identified. And I do want to say that it doesn't matter if the material was in my brief, my original brief, and it was just transposed. What matters is that it appears that additional issues are attempting to be raised that were not identified on the complaint form or the original submission from the complainant.
thank you, Ms.
That's,
Bannerman.
I think I respond. If you look at Exhibit A, I put lot sizes in there, at some of them when I had the information, and the assessor was kind enough to provide all the information, which I didn't have access to at the time, all right? That's what I did. So Exhibit A has part of the information that's in her exhibit on page 15 of her brief in chief.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin. Okay, the panel will take a 5-minute, not 15, break to deliberate the preliminary issue. We'll be back at 11:05. Okay, so the board is back. Mr. Rubin, I'm just confirming you can hear us?
I can.
Okay, so the decision of the board is that we will allow Exhibit B to form part of the package on the basis that that information was likely not known to the complainant on the initial disclosure, and that that chart was taken directly from the respondent's package and then submitted to us within the required 3 days prior for rebuttal evidence.
Thank you very much. I just want to add one other point for the record, if you indulge me for a minute. And it's the issue of whether or not the assessor can appear in front of this panel.
Mr. Rubin, I'm actually going to just stop you there and tell you
Okay.
that that is far beyond the scope of what this panel is able to decide. Should that
Okay.
be something that you wish to pursue, then I would ask you to go through the legal process to go ahead with an appeal on that. We cannot
okay,
make we are not trained, nor are we able to make a decision on that matter.
That's understandable, but what I wanted to do is just, if I do take an appeal, that I had preserve the record that I had raised the issue. I'm not asking you to rule. I understand the assessor's going to present her case.
So,
and
Mr.
I-
Rubin, I will acknowledge that you have brought up the issue of whether Ms. Bannerman and Mr. Bannerman are actually eligible to be before this quasi-hearing.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. I won't raise the issue anymore. All right?
And now, Mr. Rubin, I will ask for your evidence if you're ready to go ahead.
I am. I do have some preliminary matters which I'd like to bring up, and it goes to the qualifications of Ms. Brenneman, if you would allow me to do that.
We do not have any disclosure regarding any preliminary issues brought up by you, Mr. Rubin. So no, I would actually deny that request
Okay,
and say, can I ask you to just proceed with your evidence?
fine. I guess the easiest way to start is to quote from the town's assessment, how is my assessment calculated? And it actually appears on page 46 of the assessor's brief in chief. And it says, several characteristics are considered when determining market value, such as lot size, building size, age of building, construction quality, and location. Selling prices and rental income our construction costs, our similar properties in similar areas are also taken into consideration. So I think all of those factors are taken into consideration. And I am basing all of my discussions on those premises. So I want you to understand the relevancy of why I did what I did. So with that, I will proceed. If you look at Exhibit A, you'll have it in front of you?
Yes, we do.
Okay, fine. What I did, I listed the 2026 assessment and 2012 assessments for various properties on Silvertip Ridge, Silvertip Road, and then I went to Kansas Landing analysis, and then the third one is the duplex properties on 3rd Street. And there's a reason I put each one of those in there. Let's do the first one, the Silvertip Ridge and the Silvertip Road. And the mathematical calculations, I will not go through each one because I don't want to burden the panel. There's no need to do that. But what I did, I listed them for 26 and 25, and then I listed the differences. And the only one that I didn't list any differences are the two lots, because those I didn't list those at this time because they're two lots and they don't have the properties on them. And what I did was I took the differences, the percentage differences, and I arithmetically added that number up, and I came to an average of 7.13. And the differences in the assessment numbers was 308,000 Canadian dollars on average. My difference, as you can see, I bolded up 145 Silvertip Ridge. My difference was $985,000 compared to all the other properties. I would submit that the majority of those properties are similar in construction and the quality of the build. And I'm going to go through each one of those properties. And the easiest way to do it is to use the assessor's own brief. Because what the assessor did, she made photocopies of every one of the properties, and I want to bring this out. So if you bear with me, and we're going to start on my property, which is 145 Silvertip Bridge. And she lists in there, I'm trying to see what page it is. Unfortunately, so many pieces of paper. You'll bear with me. Okay. If you begin on page 4 of her brief, that's a photograph of my property. I might add, my wife asked me to say this as an aside, the property is jointly owned. It's my wife and myself, so I didn't want to exclude her. All right. And page 5, it shows the topographical map of Silvertip, and it shows my property, which is highlighted in blue. And on either side, there are some homes. And if you look, looking down, there's one property to the left, and then there are 2 other properties, which are the lots. Those are the lots of 153 and 157 Silvertip Bridge. And then on page 6 is a assessment summary. And those numbers speak for themselves, except the square footage I think is interesting. It's 2,354 square feet, and the land area is 11,675 square feet. When I listed these lot size, I didn't have that information to that degree of certainty, but I listed it 10,800 because, I'm sorry, 10,890. In fact, it's larger. It's 11,675 feet. I didn't know that, but Ms. Brenneman obviously did, and she put it in there. And it's fine with me. I don't have any dispute about the numbers. If you look at page 11, one of the things that I'm very interested in, if I have the opportunity to question Ms. Brenneman after this, I would like to do that. Is that okay with the panel?
Mr. Rubin, you will have that opportunity after the respondent provides her evidence.
Okay, thank you. The calculation of the property assessment, what I find particularly interesting on page 11 is the definition of what the finishes are. It's semi-custom, semi-custom, and then all luxurious, expensive, custom, and luxurious. I would submit that
I need to
I
raise
have
an
been in
objection.
many of these homes.
Sorry, just a moment, Mr. Rubin.
I need to raise an objection to the oral presentation by the complainant in the fact that he's raising additional issues about the quality of construction, which was not raised as any issue before the board, and we were not given an opportunity to sufficiently prepare.
Thank you, Ms. Bannerman. Mr. Rubin, I would ask that your oral submission be focused solely on what was actually submitted in disclosure by yourself as part of your complaint package.
All right. I did in Exhibit A, had all the information available to me at that time. I did not have the definitions that Ms. Brenneman obviously put in. I had no idea that she defined some as luxurious, and I'm going to go through the other ones she put as custom, some as, I had no information about that. The first time I saw
Again,
it was when
excuse
she
me?
put it in her brief.
Mr.
I had no
Bannerman,
idea.
or sorry, Mr. Rubin, if I can just let Ms. Bannerman speak, please.
Again, I need to raise an objection in that the complainant has identified after the board has told them to go back to their evidence, is continuing on to discuss the quality of construction, which was not raised as an issue in either the original disclosure or the rebuttal, and we have not had a sufficient time to prepare a response.
Again, Mr. Rubin, I would ask that you focus on your initial submission on your form that you provided, and then your Exhibit A, as that is what is to be considered by the board as your disclosure and your evidence. You cannot give us further evidence that has not been disclosed previously to the board or to the respondent?
Well, with all due respect, if I can add, the information that it begins on page 11 and follows with all the pictures of the homes and the description of what I assume it's the assessor categorizes the type of construction I had never seen before. This is new. It was only after I filed the initial complaint and she added these things, and I think justice and equity provides that I should have the opportunity to present that. If you want me to wait until she
Mr.
presents her
Rubin, then
evidence,
What I would suggest is that if that were the case, that should have formed part of your rebuttal evidence that could have been submitted to both the respondent and the board, and then they could have appropriately responded to that, and we would have that information as part of your disclosure. None of that was done, so that will not be considered by the board as part of your evidence. Again, I implore you to stick with what was provided in your disclosure and your complainant package and speak to those facts only, please.
that's fine. For the record, I take exception to the rule for the record, and I appreciate the board's decision. I want to put the exception in there. And the exception is accepted by the board?
Your exception is noted, and again, I ask that your evidence focus on your complainant package and the disclosure within only.
Okay. So let's go to the assessment analysis. The difference is dramatic. If you look at all the properties that were there, there's one that sticks out like a sore thumb. It happens to be my property. Its difference is over 24%, and there's not any other properties comes even close to that. So there's got to be a reason for it, and I could not discern a difference, and that's why beginning on page 26 of the respondent's brief, she lists all these other properties.
Mr. Rubin, again.
I will get to those if she wants to discuss them in her reply, and that's fine. If she doesn't, that's fine too. But I do have my rebuttal, and when she presents certain issues, then I will want to have the opportunity to rebut what she says.
That's true, Mr. Rubin. You will be able to ask the respondent questions once she has presented her evidence. If I could
Okay.
just ask you to continue to present your initial evidence regarding
Okay.
what you submitted, please.
Okay, and with respect to Cairns Landing, that I'm sure this panel is aware is a very specialized community. It's a gated community. It's on the Bow River, and I think it's very similar to the type of property that's up in Silvertip. It's an exclusive community, and you just can't walk in there like you can at Silvertip. It doesn't exist because you have to have a card to get in there. I don't know if this panel's you could take judicial notice of what it is if you've passed it. It is what it is, and I'm just saying, in comparables, it is a comparable. And the assessment difference in those properties that I was able to find any information with, the difference was 6.45% and 4.65%, as opposed to my 24.1%. There's no rational basis for what the difference is, none. And as far as the two attached duplex properties are concerned, I put them in there for a reason. They're identical. The pictures are in the assessor's package that she submitted. They are side by side. They are the same size. They are the same description. They are next to each other and actually attached. The square footage is identical. The home size is identical. Yet there's two different assessments. There's one for 2.1 million, there's one for 2.3 million. A difference in my mind of almost 10 or 15%. There's no rational basis for what she has done. And I would submit that the same type of actual assessment that she made on my property, you could look at something like that, and it's apparent that she didn't do anything. She just decided, and I don't know how she assessed it. I don't know if she personally visited these things. I kind of doubt it because in my estimation, I think there are approximately 14,000 properties that are in Canmore that are available to be assessed. So I wouldn't expect her to look at all 14,000, but there's some kind of rationale basis that she has, and it doesn't have any basis in fact when you look at the two properties that are side by side and a difference of almost, I'd say, 10 or 15% difference. So I've explained the differences in Exhibit A. I will wait to hear from the assessor and what she wants to say in her response to my Exhibit A.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin. I will go and ask the respondent if they have any questions for Mr. Rubin.
I do have just a few questions. So your property, the subject property, is located in the Silvertip neighborhood?
It is.
Is there a golf course in the Silvertip neighborhood?
There is.
Okay, and then the properties that you've identified on Cairns Landing, is that in the Silvertip neighborhood?
No.
And then those duplex properties that you've identified, where you've identified them as new construction, are they located in the Silvertip neighborhood?
Nope.
Are they single detached homes?
Pardon me?
Are they single detached homes?
No.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you.
She raised the issue. I like to ask her questions based upon what she just asked me.
Mr. Rubin, I would ask that you hold your question until the respondent provides her evidence.
Okay.
I'm just going to ask if there are any questions from the panel.
None.
Okay. Then I would ask the respondent to provide her evidence, and then, Mr. Rubin, you will have the opportunity to ask your questions after that.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're here to respectfully request that the Assessment Review Board confirm the 2025 assessment for the 2026 taxation year for the subject property located at 145 Silvertip Ridge at $5,063,000. So beginning with the testimonial evidence that we've provided on page 3, the respondent will demonstrate that assessments in Alberta must be prepared annually. The legislated valuation standard for the subject property is market value. And finally, that assessments must be prepared in a fair and equitable manner throughout the application of the mass appraisal process. So now on pages 4 and 5, we have an exterior photograph of the subject property, and we have some aerial and location mapping for the subject property as well. The property is improved with a luxury detached bungalow. It contains 2,354 square feet of above-grade living area and a fully developed walkout basement. The home was constructed in 2005 and is situated on an 11,675 square foot lot that backs onto the Silvertip Golf Course. So the aerial photos and the photo that we had provided of the subject property illustrate both the quality of the dwelling and the premium golf course location enjoyed by the property. So now on page 6, the subject property is classified as residential detached and it's zoned R1. So now on page 7, we're going to go into a little bit of the background on the assessment process in Alberta. Assessments in Alberta are governed by the Municipal Government Act and the matters relating to assessment and taxation regulation. The legislation requires that assessments represent market value and be prepared through the application of mass appraisal. Market value is defined as the amount that a property might reasonably be expected to realize if sold by a willing seller to a willing buyer in the open market. Assessments must reflect the fee simple interest of the property and reflect typical market conditions for similar properties. So mass appraisal analyzes groups of comparable properties using standardized valuation models and statistical testing. This methodology is specifically required by legislation, and it ensures fairness and equity across the assessment roll. So on page 8, we also explain the valuation approaches available to assessors. For detached residential properties in the town of Canmore, the market-modified cost approach is utilized because it best reflects buyer and seller behavior, and there are sufficient sales information to support reliable market estimates. So the town analyzed sales occurring between July 1st, 2022 and June 30th, 2025. Because these sales occur over a 3-year period, adjustments are applied to account for the market movement between the date of the sale and the legislated valuation date of July 1st, 2025. This process is consistent with the guidance provided by Alberta Municipal Affairs, and it ensures that all sales are analyzed on a common valuation date. So now on page 11, the calculation of the assessment is provided. The residential ratepayer report demonstrates the characteristics that are used in preparing the assessment. These include the lot size at 11,675 square feet. It identifies the golf course influence backing onto the golf course. It identifies the quality classification of the subject property, which is the highest quality classification within the town of Canmore. It identifies the floor area being at 2,354 square feet. It shows the garage, it shows the basement finish, and any other of these property characteristics. Of a note, the complainant has not identified any issues with the data that we have on their property. So now on page 12, the respondent submits that the complainant has failed to meet the evidentiary burden required under 460 sub 9 of the Municipal Government Act. This section requires a complainant to identify what information is incorrect, explain why it is incorrect, identify the correct information, and identify the requested assessed value. The respondent submits that the complainant has not provided evidence capable of demonstrating that the subject property's assessment is incorrect. Rather, the complainant relies primarily upon comparisons of annual assessment increases among various properties. From the original submission with the rebuttal, they are providing a per square foot analysis based on the assessor's information. We have provided several board and court decisions supporting the principle that assessments are prepared anew each year. Accordingly, the respondent submits that comparing percentage changes in assessments between years does not establish that a current assessment is incorrect and does not demonstrate market value. The respondent also submits that the board's consideration should be restricted to evidence properly disclosed in accordance with matters relating to assessment complaints regulation. So pages 13 and 14 discuss the disclosure requirements. The board and court decisions cited establish that complainants must disclose all evidence they intend to rely on sufficiently in advance of the hearing. The board is prohibited from hearing evidence that was not properly disclosed and may not hear matters that were not identified on the complaint form. Should the complainant attempt to introduce new evidence that was not properly disclosed, the respondent respectfully requests that such evidence be excluded and assigned no weight by the board. And this includes both written and oral evidence as supported by the legislation and case law. So now turning to page 15. The respondent addresses the properties relied upon by the complainant. The subject property is a luxury custom-built bungalow with a fully developed walkout basement located on a premium golf course within Silvertip. The evidence demonstrates that many of the properties relied upon by the complainant represent a lower quality of construction and finish than the subject property. So, in response to some of the issues that were attempted to be raised by the complainant during their presentation, I will just walk the board through, and I apologize this isn't on the chart. It is in our submission later on, but I'll just walk through these differences with the board for their information. So that being said, on page 15, the rural number, or the property at 145 Silvertip Ridge, is a luxurious bungalow with walkout basement. As mentioned, the luxurious quality classification is the highest quality classification for the properties within the town of Canmore. The property at 117 Silvertip Ridge, this is a custom two-story and basement property. Now, this custom is actually 3 quality classifications below what the luxurious classification is. Again, the next property at 129 Silvertip Ridge, again, is a custom 2-story and basement. The property at 137 Silvertip Ridge is a good custom bungalow with basement. And the good custom is the 1 class above the custom property, but still 2 classes below the luxurious classification. And I realize these names are a little, but there is actual criteria involved in classifying these properties this way. However, as mentioned, it was not previously raised as an issue, so we have not provided this information to either the complainant or the board. 141 Silvertip Ridge is an expensive 2-story with basement, and so the expensive classification is 1 above a good custom and 1 below the luxurious classification. The property at 153 Silvertip Ridge is a vacant land parcel. The property at 157 Silvertip Ridge is again a vacant land parcel. The property at 545 Silvertip Ridge is an expensive 2-story with basement. As mentioned previously, the expensive is 1 classification below the luxurious classification. The property at 549 Silvertip Ridge is an expensive 2-story with basement, again, 1 classification below the subject property. The property at 553 Silvertip Road is, again, an expensive 2-story with basement. The property at 557 Silvertip Road is a good custom property, 2 quality classifications below the subject property. The property at 600 Silvertip Road is an expensive 2-story with basement property. Again, that's 1 quality classification below. The property at 102 Cairns Landing, which I don't feel holds any relevant at all because it's in a different market area, that property is also an expensive 2-story with basement property. The property at 163 Cairns Landing, again, expensive 2-story with basement property. And then the last 2 properties are duplex properties, and they're a custom quality of construction and finishing. These also, notably, were only partially complete on December 31st, 2025. Okay, so I've addressed that there's 2 vacant lots that were not included as part of the complainant's evidence. This does not provide any relevance to anything material to anything that would be compared to the property at 145 Silvertip Ridge. The properties located, as mentioned, in Cairns are located within a totally different neighborhood. They have different influences, and they occupy different market positions within Canmore. They have different, they don't have a golf course, and we are looking at the sales of the properties within the Cairns Landing separately from those within Silvertip, as required by Mass Appraisal. So as we've just highlighted, the properties that were submitted by the complainant, looking at just an assessment change, and I can fast forward that same point onto an assessment or a sale price per square foot, are not comparable to the subject property entirely. So although these properties in Silvertip Ridge, identified by the complainant, do enjoy similar golf course influences, there are sufficient, that's already included in the valuation model, and it's considered consistently reflected within the neighborhood, and it really doesn't provide a basis for reducing the subject property's assessment relative to the properties that he's provided. And then finally, to summarize, the respondent submits that the assessment has been prepared in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, matters relating to assessment and taxation regulations, and accepted Mass Appraisal principles. The respondent has demonstrated that assessments are prepared annually, and independently each year, and that annual changes in assessments do not establish market value. The respondent has demonstrated that the complainant has failed to satisfy the evidentiary burden required under Sections 460 sub 9 of the Municipal Government Act, and in fact has provided no clear issues for the respondent to respond to. The respondent has also demonstrated that the properties relied upon by the complainant are either lower quality homes, vacant land parcels, they're located in different market areas, or entirely different property types. As such, they do not support the requested reduction in assessment. For all of these reasons, the respondent respectfully submits that the assessment of $5,063,000 is fair, equitable, it's supported by the legislated market value standard, and consistent with accepted mass appraisal principles. And accordingly, we respectfully request that the board confirm the 2025 assessment.
Thank you, Ms. Bannerman. Mr. Rubin, I will ask if you have any questions of the complainant, and I will just
You mean the respondent?
sorry, of the respondent, and I will just specify that this is questions on the evidence that's just been presented, not new evidence that you wish to
No, it's
submit.
not, it's not going to be. It's not going to be. Ms. Berneman, you have listed the properties and you have given an identification, custom or luxurious. Have you ever been in any of those homes?
Yes.
Which ones?
This was not raised as an issue. We could have brought that information if it had been raised earlier. However, I do not have that information with me at this time.
Have you been in either home on either side of my property?
We're at every property within the town of Canmore initially during the time it was originally constructed, and routinely as part of our regular reinspection cycle, as part of our permitting process, so our annual assessment process when people take out permits. So yes, we have been in front of or inside of every property within the town of Canmore.
When you say you, you're talking about your company, correct?
No, I'm talking about assessors who are representing the town of Canmore.
Okay, the property at 141, I'm going to refer to it as the Burris property because that's who the owners are. That property was built in 1998, I think, finished about 5-6 years before my property. Are you aware of some of the interior things that are in that property?
We are aware of the information as was demonstrated in the following pages. That is the information that we have recorded on the subject on that property at 141 Silvertip Ridge.
How did you come up with things expensive?
Sorry, can you repeat that, Mr. Rubin? You cut out.
Yeah, at 141, you, I believe, have listed the characteristics of that property as being expensive. I want to know how you came up with expensive.
Sure, and so that's with the benchmarks that we've made within the neighborhood and within the town of Canmore. It's consistent with the benchmarks that have been made actually throughout the entire province of Alberta for quality classifications. There's various different criteria based on the quality of construction and finishing, and the interior components. So each of these different quality classifications that I listed would have different criteria that the assessor would be looking at to determine where it falls within the quality classifications.
Would it change your opinion of your identifying whether it's luxurious or some other type if I would tell you that in the interior of that house, because you said you were aware of the interior, that it has a complete floor-to-ceiling climbing wall in that house from the
Yeah.
basement to the top floor?
Yeah, and
The
so
rock-
I do feel that through this question, you're attempting to introduce new evidence that was not previously stated. I don't have that information in front of you, in front of me, and I'm not prepared to answer that question since it wasn't raised initially.
Mr.
Well, you
Rubin?
just said to me, wait, if I can interrupt, excuse me. You said that you, based upon what the assessors looked at the inside of the house. Now you're saying you don't have the information. Which is it?
Mr. Rubin, I'm going to again ask you to respond to the evidence before us. The board will
Well-
not take into consideration any information that has not been provided to them, and there has been no documentation pertaining to the classification of your residence or any of the residences within Silvertip. So it is an area that we will not be considering when making our ruling. So I would please ask you to move on from that.
All right, I will
on
take
to the
exception to your ruling, if you'll grant me an exception.
Yes, we are going to agree that you're taking exception, but these are the rules of evidence that I am following for this quasi-judicial matter. So that is what I am following as the presiding officer and what we will adhere to as a board when making our decisions.
Okay, that's
So
fine.
again, I will ask your questions to the respondent be on the evidence that she has presented.
How did you come up with the categorization of my house being luxurious?
The classification of your home initially would have been set by looking through the building plans, inspecting the property, and judging it based on the criteria as I previously mentioned in my previous response.
And would that be the same of all the other properties you went through before the board and you identified whether it be custom or expensive?
That is correct.
So is it possible, have you made any errors in evaluating the properties?
If there
In
were
the past-
errors in the classification of the property, that would be something that the property owners could raise to us, and we would certainly be open to going and inspecting their property. In this case, there's been no question as to the classification of your property that has been provided through the evidence or any of our discussions previous to your complaint being filed. So at this point, that has not been challenged through the evidence, and we're not prepared to make that response.
All right, let's get to the two lots that are on there.
I'm going to interject, Mr. Rubin. There are no residences on those lots, so I'm not sure how that is going to
Well,
provide
if
the
you'll give me
panel
no-
any information with regard to a fair market value of a residence when these are vacant, this is vacant land.
Well, in the information that was submitted by the assessor, how is my assessment calculated? They look at determining market value such as lot size, building, age, so that is one of the criteria, lot size. It's not it's the explanation of the town of Canmore, all right? And she put it in her brief at page 46. It's highly relevant.
So I would suggest that when we're talking about the market value of your property, we're looking at properties that are similar
I
to your
didn't ask a question. I would
Excuse
just
me?
like to ask the assessor, and I will go through the Exhibit B, which I did have here, and the panel said that I could use Exhibit B, and that's what I want to use, the two lots.
Okay, I'm just going to state that at the point of the hearing that we're at now, it's you, Mr. Rubin, asking Ms. Bannerman any questions regarding her evidence. We will get to your rebuttal evidence next.
Okay, thank you. So, if you'll bear with me. Do vacant lots have a value that you put on them?
Yes.
And if there are two lots that are adjacent to each other, that are basically two lots down from where my home is that's considered relevant, is it not?
No, I don't believe it is, because at this point, we're discussing the property assessment for the subject property. As discussed, these are vacant lots, and they provide no relevance or no similarity to the subject property.
And yet you decided to put the vacant lots on page 15 of your response brief, correct?
They are on there
No,
directly.
just answer my
excuse
question,
me.
please. No,
Excuse me.
answer my question, please.
I'm trying-
Correct? No,
You
just
asked-
answer yes or no.
You've
Mr.
answered a
Rubin,
question,
yeah.
and I'm going to respond to it. So,
No, I want a yes or no.
no, I can answer it as I wish.
No, I've asked the question. You get to answer my question. Do you want to explain later?
Mr.
That's
Rubin,
perfectly okay.
Mr. Rubin, this is not an adversarial, or we're trying to not have this as an adversarial type of hearing. This is not prosecutor defense in a court of law. This is a quasi-judicial where we're just trying to get the facts out so that we as a panel are able to make a solid decision on your assessed value. So I would
Go ahead.
ask for some a little more leniency when speaking with Ms. Bannerman to allow her to actually answer the question you are asking, please.
Fine, let her answer, and then I'll question her about that.
The two properties that appear, the vacant lots on page 15, are in direct response to what was provided by the complainant in their Appendix A.
Did you say they're irrelevant in your response?
I do believe they are relevant to the assessment of the subject property.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to get. So let's look at those two properties, those lands. And you have the square footage of 153 is, I'm going to round off the numbers. It's almost 14,000 square feet, correct?
Sure. Okay,
Okay.
yes. The difference in sizes there, as I mentioned, these are not relevant to the assessment of the subject property.
That's fine. We're past that point, I think. And at 157, the approximate square footage is 23,500 square feet, correct?
23,487.
I said, I'm rounding it off. I'm trying to, you want to be precise, I can be precise. I'm just trying to round it off. All right. So the difference between 153 and 157 is 68% larger in terms of square footage. Take my math, it's correct, unless you want to do your own.
Mr.
you
Rubin, can I
assessed it.
ask, what is the question to Ms. Bannerman? I think she's already stated that these vacant lots are irrelevant. Is
They
there
are
a
relevant.
question that you have?
They're extremely relevant, and I'm going to explain why in a minute. If you give me a chance and opportunity to lay a foundation, which is what I'm trying to do. Okay? Thank you. Then the assessment in 2025 was basically 1,400,000. I put that in there, and that's, you don't dispute that number, do you?
To be honest, I have answered many questions, but the most important question that I've answered is that these do not have any relevance on this assessment of the subject property. So regardless of any type of calculation you're providing or analysis that you're providing on your desktop calculator, they haven't been provided as evidence. And in addition, they are not relevant to the subject property, which is an improved residential property within the Silvertip neighborhood, comparing to vacant lots.
Okay, but in your submission on page 46, you set the Canmore website and the assessment. You said, "How is my assessment calculated?" And this is your work. You say several characteristics are considered when determining market value, such as lot size, and then there's some other things. So lot size is a consideration, is it not?
Lot size is a consideration within the assessment process, within the entirety and all of the other property characteristics for the properties there. It's a component of it. It's not the entirety of it.
I didn't say it was. I just said it's a consideration. And you agree with that, don't you?
Lot size is a consideration in the assessment process.
Mr.
Okay,
Rubin,
thank-
I'm going to ask you to move on unless you actually have a question. I
I
think
do.
Ms.
I'm gonna
Bannerman
lay it
has
down.
confirmed that lot size is a consideration. We have the figures in front of us.
Okay.
Is there anything further to be stated on that?
Yes, I am. And the assessment in 2025 was 1,400,000 rounding off. And the assessment, and again, for the largest one was 1,435,000, a difference of $34,000. Then in 2026, it's the identical assessment. Does the lot size get evaluated in terms of whether or not it's increased in value over a time period with lots that are a golf course?
Mr. Rubin, I'm going to ask you to move on, and I'm sure you will have an exception to this, which I will acknowledge. But as the presiding officer, we really need to stick to the evidence at hand. I think we have discussed the lot sizes and your concerns with that, and the fact that the lot size does form part of your assessment. But can you move on to questions of the respondent's evidence?
Okay.
Can I just
Let's
make
go.
one point regarding this? I would like
Okay.
to formally ask the board to exclude the lot size, the lot parcels as well as the parcels in Cairns Landing and the duplexes that were provided as evidence due to the fact that they hold no comparability to the subject property.
The board will take that into consideration, and we understand that that is part of the respondent's disclosure.
Thank you. You went through each one of the properties and you gave the square footage and the type of customization or whether or not it's good bidder. Let's get back to my property. In prior years, you didn't assess it anywhere near this number, did you?
As mentioned, every year when we're preparing assessments is anew, so it is normal for assessments not to, so every year your assessment has changed based on the changes in the market.
And the market is what a willing buyer and a willing seller are going to pay for the property. Is that correct?
The definition is the amount that would likely be realized in a transaction between a willing buyer and a willing seller, and that is the premise of using the knowns, which are the sales that have occurred within our 3-year valuation period, in order to develop our valuation models, which are then applied back to all the unknowns, so all the properties that have not sold.
How many sales have occurred in that 3-year period in the Silvertip, the properties that I've listed?
I don't have that information in front of me because it wasn't raised as either a question or as an issue before this hearing. So I'm not prepared to answer that information.
I'll tell you the answer. The answer is 1.
There's been no evidence provided by
That's
the complainant to
fine.
demonstrate that there was only one sale.
I'm just submitting it, that's all. There's
Mr.
one sale.
Mr. Rubin, again, I have to implore you to stay with evidence that you have actually submitted or that form part of the respondent's disclosure. The board will not take into consideration any oral arguments of information that has not previously been provided to us through disclosure, as that is what we must adhere to as the board under the regulations and the Municipal Government Act.
Ms. Berneman, you and I discussed, we had a phone conversation, did we not?
We did have a phone conversation during the inquiry period prior to a complaint being filed.
That's right. And I informed you of certain facts, did I not?
To be honest, I cannot remember every detail of the conversation. I do know that we did have a conversation which resulted in me not agreeing that a change to your assessed value was warranted.
I think that's a correct conclusion on your part. Did I inform you at the time that the property, my property, had been for sale for 5 years?
As mentioned, possibly, I don't recall that, but as mentioned, we do prepare assessments based on completed market transactions, not on list information.
And did I tell you at the time there had never been an offer on the property? 5 years?
I would turn the question back, even though this hasn't been submitted as evidence, to the complainant to ask what his list price was over this 5-year period.
Mr. Rubin, I am trying to be patient with you as the presiding officer, but you are going far beyond the scope of any evidence that has been provided in disclosure. Do you have any other specific questions of the respondent based on the evidence she has just presented? If not, we will move on to your rebuttal evidence.
Okay, I will go to Exhibit B. There is a
Mr.
schedule.
Rubin, just a moment. We do have a question from the board.
Sure.
Thank you for your presentation.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Mr. Rubin, I'm just going to advise that the board is actually asking Ms. Bannerman questions
Oh, I'm
based
sorry.
on her evidence. So if you could just stand
Okay.
by, thank you.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions. We heard that you are looking at every area, every neighborhood on a regular basis. Do you know when was the last time you've seen Silvertip area?
Silvertip is a little different, just in the fact we have, I'm trying to think, I believe it was 5 years ago when I first started in Canmore, but it's a little different in the fact that the properties there are all brand new. and still being constructed. So we're all the time in that neighborhood, well, except for now, because the last one's finally complete. But yeah, so we haven't done a formal reinspection of that neighborhood because it's assumed that the property data that was originally put on that neighborhood, because the properties are still being built and within 5 years, is still accurate. In cases where maybe a property owner would feel that the data is not accurate on their property, they have contacted us, and we've gone out and done interior inspections of the property to ensure that the data is correct. So we're pretty comfortable in that area. It's too new for renovations to occur. So we're comfortable with the data in that area.
Makes sense. So you're saying 5 years?
Every 5 years, yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Can I
you.
continue, please?
And my other question is,
Oh, I'm sorry.
often we see comparable sales provided in your package. In this case, we didn't see one. Was there no sale in the valuation period?
No, it wasn't that there was no sales within the valuation period. It was that the complainant has not raised market value as an issue. And so when we're responding to the assessment comparables that he's provided. And so as part of the complainant's responsibility, the onus is on him to demonstrate that the market value is incorrect. Since that wasn't even addressed as an issue, we haven't provided it in our response.
Thank you.
All right, let me continue with Exhibit B. Do you have it in front of you, Ms. Bennerman?
Mr. Rubin,
Yes.
we will now ask you to present your rebuttal evidence, which is based on your Exhibit B. And again, I would implore you to please stick to only what has been disclosed to us regarding that information.
Okay, let's get to Exhibit B. I listed all the properties on there with the exception of the duplexes. Do you see that,
Yes, we
Ms.
do.
Brenneman? This is addressed to Ms. Brenneman. You see that, Ms. Brenneman?
I believe that everybody's following with you. Thank you.
Okay, fine. And the first column is the address, basically. The next one is the lot area and square footage. And what I did was I took the lot area, and then I took all the lot areas of the other properties that are listed there. And what I did was there was either a plus or minus in terms of the square footage of the respondent properties. And then what I did, I added that figure up, and it was 38,999 square foot difference in terms of the totality, taking in the pluses and the minus. That number is the net number. And then what I did, I have a footnote of the 3899. I divided by 14 homes. And the average difference of the 14 homes listed there, they're in excess of 2,729 square feet larger than my home. That means they're approximately 23.4% larger than my home in terms of square footage. The next thing I did, I took the floor area of each one of those homes, and obviously did not include the lot size for the vacant lots because there's no floor area. And I did the same type of computation. And I took mine, which is the first one, and of course it doesn't apply because I'm using mine as a basis. And I added all the floor areas that are listed in your exhibits, which you went through with the board, and I took your numbers that you listed, and I computed that out. So the difference in the floor area was 15,045 square feet in excess of mine total. And then what I did, I divided the 15,045 by the 12 homes that are listed in the schedule, and it was an average of 1,253.75 square feet larger than my home. So by that calculation, the floor areas of those homes are 53.2.6% larger than my home. Then what I did, I took the year built, again, using your numbers from when they were built. And the average home, taking them all into consideration, and I didn't use mine, it was 20,015. My house was built in 25, the difference being all the homes on average are 10 years newer than mine. So taking into calculation all of the criteria that you use, the lot size, the floor area, the year built, every one of those statistics show dramatically that those areas are larger than mine, are newer than mine. And yet you say because of the luxurious nature that the home of mine is so much superior than all the other homes in Silvertip. You also raise the issue that they're on the golf course. Every one of those homes are on the golf course with the exception of the Cairns. And the Cairns, and as I explained earlier, and I don't know if the panel is familiar with the Cairns, I'm deferential. I can just ask the panel if you're familiar with the Cairns. If you are, I won't go into an explanation of the Cairns.
We're familiar.
Okay, fine. I won't do that. But it does happen to sit right along the Bow River. And the homes up in Silvertip don't sit along any river. So looking at that, the totality, some of the criteria that you use, which is on page 46 of her submission, you look at lot size, building size, age of building, construction quality, and location. Every one of those criteria, every one, in terms of the lot size, the floor area, the year built, and the quality of construction. And I would submit that the quality of construction is it's a subjective standards. And I can just attest, and I won't go into any detail, some of the homes, which I have been in every one of those homes where they were neighbors of mine after they were built. I was in them when they were being built. And I can tell you quite frankly, some are as exquisite as mine. I'm not debating the fact that mine is not exquisite. It is. But the fact of the matter is, homes on either side of me, the one, for example, to the Burris' house, was voted the best new house in Canada when it was built. The same builders
Mr.
who built-
Rubin, again.
I know I'm going to far afield.
Yes, but I have asked you, and I am trying to be patient, but this is far afield for about the 10th time this hearing. We have before us your Exhibit B. That's all we are discussing at this time.
Okay, but the issue is, the assessor has put in submission the exhibits, and she's put a luxurious or another type of lower classification, expensive. I am trying to say, and I understand these are, but she's never been in these houses in over 5 years. She testified to that. And I'm saying that some of those homes, particularly the ones on either side of me, are quality, luxurious homes, from my personal knowledge.
Okay, and we are focused solely on your residence. And do you have anything further to provide to the board regarding Exhibit B?
No.
Thank you. Then I will ask if there are any questions from the respondent. No. From the board? No. Then I will go on to argument summation. Mr. Rubin, if you wish to sum up your evidence, and again, I would ask that it be evidence that has been submitted in disclosure and that you stick to that during your summation. Thank you.
Okay. Numbers are an interesting concept. You can make them say anything you want, but the numbers are what the numbers are in both Exhibit A and Exhibit B. They're just there. They're not in dispute. They are the numbers. And I would suggest, based upon what I presented to the board, that those numbers amply demonstrate the fact that the house that I own along with my wife is out. It's just an outlier, and the numbers support it. Every barometer that you could possibly use shows that the differences in the valuation of my home does not go against what is on the other properties. And I would say, look at the numbers, see what the numbers say, use your common sense. And based upon your common sense and what the numbers say, and they're right in front of you, it's absolutely clear that my property, as compared to the other properties, based upon the standards that I've already put in front of you, which were part of the assessor's brief on page 46, they clearly show that those standards were not met when they evaluated the assessment value of my house.
Thank you. I will now move to the summation by the respondent.
Sure, thank you. So we submit that the assessment has been prepared in accordance with the Municipal Government Act and the matters relating to assessment and taxation regulation and accepted mass appraisal practices. We have demonstrated that assessments are prepared annually and independently each year. and that annual changes in assessed values do not establish market value. We have demonstrated that the complainant has failed to satisfy any evidentiary burden required under Section 460 sub 9 of the Municipal Government Act, and in fact has provided no clear issues before the hearing for the respondent to respond to. We've also demonstrated that the properties relied on by the complainant are either lower quality homes, vacant land parcels located in different market areas, or entirely different property types such as duplexes. As such, they do not support the requested reduction amount from the complainant. And then as for the quality of construction and finishing that the complainant has just raised during their summation, the quality of construction and finishes does not change over time. It's set at the initial construction of the property based on the components in and outside of it. And this would only change over time if there are physical changes made to the property. So regardless of whether the house was built in 2003 or 2004 versus the 2021, those same standards are being applied. And the quality of construction and finishes also refers back to what the standard or what the expensive or luxurious quality was for the era of construction for the property. So construction types have changed significantly over the last several decades, and that is reflected in the quality classifications that we adhere to. And an example of that would be, back in 1970, where you would have, or 1960, you would have a 1,000 square foot bungalow as a standard quality of construction. Now, you would not have a 1,000 square foot bungalow as a standard quality of construction because the styles and the market has changed, and the builders are building different types of homes, which are also standard quality of construction, which would be more along a 2-story and basement that's about 1,400 square feet. So the demands of the market have changed. What quality of construction has changed over the decades. So I just wanted to highlight that just to explain to the property owner the difference in ages. So based on all of these reasons that we have submitted and discussed throughout our presentation, we respectfully submit that the assessment of $5,063,000 is fair, equitable, supported by the legislated market value standard, and consistent with the mass appraisal practices, and accordingly, the respondent respectfully requests that the board confirm the 2025 assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bannerman. Mr. Rubin, any last words from you?
Yes, I would. And again, I will repeat, and I apologize for repeating, but on page 46, which is part of the assessor's brief, it specifically says that you consider market value, the lot size, the building size, the age of the building. And what the assessor just did went against exactly what she put in her brief. That's one thing, okay? The second thing is I came up with a number which I thought should be the proper assessed value, which is part of the complaint. And I put $4,368,000. And you're going to probably wonder how I came up with that number. I didn't pull that number out of my hat. What I did was I took the arithmetical calculations in Exhibit A and Exhibit B, and I multiplied that number against the previous year's assessment, and that's how I came up with $4,368,000. I'm not asking for the last year's assessment. I'm asking for the one based upon the charts that I submitted to the panel and the complaint. So it's not a number that I decided it was my hat size. There's a rational basis for it. And it's all based upon the statistical information on these charts, Exhibit A and Exhibit B. With that, I thank the panel for its indulgence.
Thank you, everyone, for your cooperation and for your helpful presentations. At this time, I would like to ask the parties if they feel that they have been heard today and if they feel that they have received a fair hearing. Mr. Rubin?
To the extent that I think I have had a fair hearing. I would like to add something if I can, and if the panel doesn't want to hear it, that's fine with me. But I would like to lay a foundational element if there's an appeal and the assessor's background, which I intended to do, but I was kind of cut off. And I want to lay a foundation. I understand the panel is not considering that as part of the evidence, but I want to lay a foundational element that if there is an appeal, that somebody can't say I didn't bring up the factual predicates for my appeal.
Already done and acknowledged. Thank you. Respondent? I will now declare the hearing closed. No further evidence or submissions may be received by the board. The Municipal Government Act requires a written decision within 30 days and gives the clerk an additional 7 days to issue the decision. We'll make every effort to meet or beat those requirements, and the clerk will forward our decision to you at our earliest opportunity. We will now take a 10-minute break. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome to this Canmore Local Assessment Review Board hearing. I would like to remind everyone that the ARB hearings are open to the public and that this hearing will be recorded and streamed live. The video recording will be our record of hearing. We are here today to review the complaint and subsequent evidence as filed for tax roll number 16099, municipal address of 113 Stone Creek Place. I will start by introducing the panel and then ask the parties to introduce themselves. After that, I will explain our standard hearing procedure and ask for comments in that regard. My name is Anita Furlan, and I am the presiding officer appointed to this panel. The other panel members with me today are...
My name is Jen Marin. I'm a panel member and a representative of Town of Canmore Council.
Good afternoon. My name is Christoph Breyer.
Does anyone have any objection to the panel as constituted? And I will just note now that the complainant is not here in person as it is a written submission only. I'm now going to have the parties introduce themselves, starting with the complainant, who is not here, but it is Darren and Lori Bellick who have provided a written submission, and the respondent.
My name is Deanne Bannerman. I'm with Legacy Municipal Services, and I'm the appointed assessor for the Town of Canmore.
Thank you. The LARB standard practice is to have the complainant present all of their evidence first, followed by the questions from the respondent and then the panel. Next, the respondent presents their evidence, followed once again by questions from the complainant and then the panel. The complainant will have an opportunity for rebuttal. Finally, both parties will have an opportunity to present their final arguments and summarize their evidence for the panel, with the complaint presenting first. But in this case, it is a written submission, so the board will review the documentation as provided by the complainant and the evidence provided by the respondent. I see both parties have exchanged disclosure evidence before the hearing. To save time, I propose that we mark all documents for the record now. That won't stop anyone raising questions about admissibility later. If any such questions arise, we can still deal with them and strike material from the record later if necessary. Is everyone comfortable with this procedure?
Yes, we are.
Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. For tax roll 16099, we received complainant package marked C1, the complaint form of 1 page. Complainant package marked C2, the complainant disclosure of 5 pages, and the respondent package marked R1, respondent disclosure of 35 pages.
Are there any preliminary issues for the panel to address?
There are none.
I will now declare the hearing closed, as the board will deliberate through the written submissions of both the complainant and the respondent, and the board has no questions of the respondent. The Municipal Government Act requires a written decision within 30 days and gives the clerk an additional 7 days to issue the decision. We will make every effort to meet or beat those requirements, and the clerk will forward our decision to you at our earliest opportunity.